This call on the river would never have been possible if we range bet the flop, and this call is an extremely winning thing to do. It won't always work, but it's going to work a lot more than 39% it needs to work. Let's look at how we got here. We reached a spot by making an open that's slightly outside of the charts, but trust me guys, this is a winning open in low stakes poker. No one is 3-betting enough out of the big blind, and because of that, and the skill edge that in position is going to enjoy, this is going to make you money. Made a video on this a while back. And we got to that river spot by not range betting the flop. A lot of people see a high frequency c-bet board like 994, it's dry, it's paired, and they reason I'm going to simplify my strategy by range betting. I'm going to start off by debunking the idea of simplifying one strategy. I find this to be bogus in 90% of the cases where it's used, and here's why. If you adopt a simple exploitative strategy, where you're using a population exploit layer of the game, that can be just as simple as range betting. So for example, if you have an exploitative strategy that goes as follows, I'm going to check back medium strength hands and then call on most runouts against most opponents, against most sizes, you are going to be doing really well, and that is extremely simple. Is it balanced? No. Is it exploitable? Yes. But strategies that are exploitable are also exploitative. Exploitable equals exploitative. Do you want to maximize EV? Do you want to play good exploit poker? Or do you want to minimize what you can do to your opponents and try and copy a solver? What do you want to do? It's up to you. If you want to maximize your EV, check this flop, call this turn, and call this river. Because it is damn near impossible for a villain who has any propensity to bluff this river to not overbluff enormously when you min open pre, leaving their range extremely wide, check the flop, leaving their range just as wide as it was when it landed on the flop, and then they're telling you a story that they have trip nines or a jack. They might have king jack here, maybe. Bit weird to bet the turn small with it, but they might have. They might do this with a bad jack, although it seems extremely unlikely actually at low stakes. It's a 100 NL hand. And they might have a 9, of course, that's the main thing they're saying they have is a 9 or a boat, but the combinations of that are tiny. The combinations of Queen 10 are up to 16, depending on what 3-bets. Queen 8, Queen 7, 5-3 suited, 6-3 suited, 10-8. If villain is leading the turn indiscriminately, which I'm not saying everyone is, but a lot of people are, they can get to this river with such a gigantic vat of bluffs that you win 75% of the time by calling your pair of fours. That could well be the case in an extreme situation where you manipulate your opponent's range to remain this wide. You could well be winning that often. King 8, I mean, this hand has got to be a turn check, right? It's too high up to even be probing, but low stakes opponents are going to make polarization mistakes, over bluffing mistakes. They're not going to be comfortable with that really wide range that you have left them. They've built that pre-flop and they cannot handle it, guys. So why on earth are you range betting this flop? Why are you playing a strategy that stops them from actually making the errors that they are prone to make? If you want to beat micro stakes poker, 25 NL, 50 NL, low stakes poker, 100 NL, you name it, this is what I think you should do. Quite honestly, is overprotect that flop checking range. I've got a whole episode about how to exactly craft a flop strategy in my series True EV. You can access if you're a Carrot Corner subscriber, among other things. But yeah, that's the name of the game. True EV, not solver EV. You're not indifferent. Don't simplify things for yourself. Go on the front foot and drive up your expected value instead. Part of becoming a crusher at low stakes and moving up and building your bankroll, achieving your wildest dreams and ambitions, is about being good at reading relative hand strength. It's about understanding when a hand that looks poor at face value in absolute terms is good enough to invest money with, and when a hand that looks good is actually a fold or a check or shouldn't invest money. This is a real core skill, right? So in this hand, we have ace-9. We open the cutoff. 4-4-3 is not as much of a board you want to range bet with these low cards in theory anyway. Some people do. They do get away with it, right? If you range bet, you do get away with it. People don't punish you for it. They don't raise enough. That doesn't make it the best strategy with your hand. Your job as a poker player is to drive up your EV in each and every spot, and you do that by maximizing the way you play your hand against the range and strategy of your opponent. Your hand, their range and strategy, not your range. Your range might have some meta effect if it's a strong player that knows what your range roughly looks like, maybe, but that is indirect. The direct way that your EV is affected is your hand and its properties, the board, the situation, your opponent's range and strategy. That's what you should be thinking about. So here with ace 9, while we would get away with range bet, while they probably won't raise enough on this texture because they'd have to raise a ton against the range bet here, that doesn't make it the best thing to do with ace 9. Is it a simplification? I don't even know if it is, because once you learn to check showdown value, it's not complicated, guys. People are like, oh, you're complicating your strategy. I'm complicating my strategy by just checking a medium hand and then pressing the call button? I'm sorry, but if you find that complex, you probably shouldn't play poker. You don't deserve to play the game. Villain checks. And again, we have no reason for betting. We're not getting called by much worse. We're not getting folds from any better. We are checking this one back, and we are fully aware, once again, ladies and gentlemen, that we have left the opponent's range drowning in shit. We don't care that the river is a 6. I don't give a damn that a deuce makes a straight now. He has hardly any deuces. They're likely to bet the turn. I don't care that a 7 makes a straight now. He has hardly any 7s. They're quite likely to bet the turn. So what does he have? King high, queen high, jack high, all the combos of 10-9 offsuit. That's the sort of thing that people call min opens with. Check twice and then overbet the river. What's he saying? He's saying I have a boat or a 7. Maybe a deuce, but most likely a boat or a 7 at these stakes when people do this. I'm not saying they can't do it with a deuce, I'm just saying they usually won't. Do we believe that we are losing here 63% of the time or more? No. We think we're winning more than we're losing, and we're getting 37% pot odds here. That means if we just win 40% of the time, we're printing out a little bit of profit in this spot. We are not folding this spot. We have a bluff catcher in an over-bluffed environment where we've engineered villain to land with too much stuff. We've left their range wide. Now we punish it. Villain has Queen Jack, one of the many combos of Broadway, or Broadway medium card. This is what his range mostly is. People at low stakes and micro stakes, they can't control it, guys. When you see an overbet on the river, you're looking at a regular. You're not looking at some passive fish. That's not who your opponent is. You're looking at an inexperienced reg, because they're playing low stakes, right? So they're usually going to be inexperienced. So I'm showing you how to play in the games that most of you are actually in. And you should be letting these people do dumb stuff when they have a weak range. I can't even stress how valuable this message is. Like, it's unbelievably valuable if you try it out. Try it out against regs, against weaker players as well. See how you get on. Remember that when you're calling bets, you never need to win half of the time. It's always going to be less, because you're always getting better than 1-to-1, no matter what the sizing. And very often you need like 25% equity to call their half pot bet, and many of you are folding in these spots with bluff catchers when you've left their range really wide. Range betting this flop is not a theoretical travesty. Your solver will not report an EV loss, but what it will do is it will shut down a golden opportunity to make a lot of EV. I'm not going to be just giving you videos like this all the time, because quite honestly, it might break the low stakes games for everyone if they ever go viral. Maybe that's not a worry, I don't know. But please try this out. Don't copy your solver. We're going to look at one more hand now, but first, here are 3 points that I want you to take home from today's video that are just very, very important. Firstly, solver EV does not equal true EV. So when you look at your solver and you see that range betting doesn't have an EV loss associated with it, or that it's a small EV loss, your opponent would have to raise a ton just to do well against it or to punish it, that doesn't matter. Solver EV does not equal true EV. We're here to get to the bottom of what's the best true EV here against a human. Secondly, it's very hard not to overbluff when your range is drowning in air combos. Very, very hard. And thirdly, you do not want to remove your opponent's avenues for making mistakes. You want to leave those channels open. Even if it means that sometimes you check back this flop and Jack 6 of spades that would have folded hits a Jack and doesn't fold anymore and wins a pot from you. Even if that's the case, it's a small price to pay for all of the EV that exists by people over bluffing when you leave their range wide. Okay, let's get to the third hand. This one's a bit weirder, but I still think this illuminates why range betting is frankly a disaster at low stakes when you do it mindlessly. This hand is a bit more complex and tricky, but the message on the flop is simple. If you have a good hand and you are a range better, right? Let's say that that's what you do here. You range bet to simplify your strategy. And one of the reasons that you justify that simplification, I don't think it's a simplification, but okay, you do. So one of the reasons you do that is because you think that they overfold. But then you do it with ace king. You think that they overfold, but then you don't want to try and find a better line with ace king here. Well, guess what? People stab a lot. People stab too much at low stakes and micro stakes when checked to, and for good reason, because when you check to them, they expect quite a bit of fold equity because people don't protect their checking ranges. So it's kind of a meta at low stakes that stabbing does well. So here, villain checks back, but very often they're going to stab. And when they stab, I'm going to check raise. And check raising is pretty cool because if you're going to say, well, range betting's great because they don't raise it enough and they fold a bit too much to it, that may be so, which would make it a really good idea with an air hand. It would make it a worse idea with a value hand. It's mad that I have to spell this out to people, but I do, believe it or not, have to spell this out to people. So the reason that you don't want to range bet in this spot is the very reason that you do want to bet with air against a pool that's too passive and too tight. So we go for a check raise. On the turn, when villain hasn't bet, they very unlikely have a flush. They very unlikely have a hand like King X because people are very bad at checking their King X. Again, 100 NLs at low stakes poker when you're trying to crush this. They're not going to protect their checking range. They are going to have a 6 sometimes. But what they're usually going to have here is some mediocre hand like Ace High that you don't really get 2 streets from, or just air. And the air with a heart's more likely to have bet the flop than the air without a heart. So their most likely type of hands at this point are like 10-9 of clubs and all of that sort of hand. So I think checking again here and just, again, giving a bit of rope in a spot where it's a little bit blood from a stone to try to get 2 streets of value is probably a good idea. Villain pots it. They're kind of saying they have a 6 or a flush here. Maybe a good king, but yeah, 6 or a flush mostly for value. Again, I have a very hard time buying it, given that we've given them the chance to bet the flop. They haven't, so we're discounting a lot of the flush draws. There's a lot of air that checks back. Again, we're like a border collie here, guys. We're like a sheepdog, and we're like herding their range into the pen that we want it to be in. We're kind of saying, oh, let me just leave you with all this shit, and then we'll see how you handle it. They pot it, we call. We don't really want a fast play here. We have something close to a bluff catcher on steroids, value beater, like a not very good value beater, but a value beater nonetheless. I think they could have it King Jack, but it's not the point. Queen comes in the river. Villain bets again. You know, they're saying, hey, I have a 6. I have a flush, and I've just chosen this sizing with it. We don't believe that they do often enough. We need like 30% to call. They have 10-9 with a 10 of hearts. Seems like a reasonable bluff. I don't think the opponent played this badly, but the amount of EV you're going to gain by checking the flop with ace-king here, if you range bet, if you bet with 10-8 of diamonds because you're like, they don't punish me, they fold too much, why are you betting ace-king? Surely there's a better line. Do you really want to put the simplicity, quote unquote, I hate this word, I'm going to keep ridiculing it, of your strategy before just doing good stuff over and over again? Do you really think that if you memorize a good strategy, internalize it, get into the habit of playing it, and start exploiting the pool more, do you really think that your strategy is going to become overwhelmingly complex and you're somehow going to leak tons of EV away? I have no doubt that in the comments, I'll be discussing this with people who want to fight the simplify your strategy corner here and don't want to do what I'm recommending, and that's fine. I'm happy to have that debate, but please think about it openly, reflect on it honestly, and then comment. Let me know what you think. If you like this format, let me know what you think. If you like the way we teach the game, the whole Carrot Poker School awaits you at carrotcorner.com. The Golden Carrot Pass, access to everything we've already done, including forever subscription access, awaits you. Check out Carrot Corner and have fun not range betting the flop. See you next time.